All right, we are back. Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora, he's the fighter, I'm the writer. Couple more weeks recording on opposite coast before I head back to Los Angeles, still enjoying the New England weather for a little while longer. Sergio, I know you were enjoying the weather where you are because you continue to FaceTime me every time you've had a couple of drinks. Last weekend, I was doing some work when my phone blew up, middle of the afternoon. No chance I was answering that. I'm sure you had something really important to tell me, didn't you?
Yeah, I met some old Contender fans. Young guys don't even remember me from the Contender, but they remember me as a broadcaster now. But they had no idea I was a fighter, so it was a weird thing, talking to a new generation of boxing fans and MMA fans, because most of the new fans are MMA fans as well. So, and by the way, New England weather sucks, right? So don't even bring New England to this conversation when it comes to beauty and glory of Southern California weather.
New England weather in June, July, August, and September is measurably better than the weather virtually anywhere else. That's a fact. Simple fact when it comes to weather.
You and the weather in New England are the same, cold, bitter, and no one wants to be around it.
Okay. I would love to have at the tip of my tongue a comparison to you and the LA weather, but I'll have to think about it for next week. A reminder to everyone to subscribe, rate, review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you download pods. Subscribe to the DAZN YouTube page for full episodes of The Fighter and the Writer. Subscribe to my YouTube page for clips and episodes of all other podcasts. We have a guest this week, Sergio. Second week in a row, we've got a guest. Raymond Ford, the former 126-pound champion, fighting for the third time at 130 pounds when he takes on Abraham Nova on Saturday in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Ray has been on a hell of a run since winning his 126-pound championship and is eyeing all the title holders at 130 and got a great shot, I think, of landing one with another impressive performance on Saturday. Before we get to that and to some of the other topics, though, Sergio, I got to get your take on this landmark UFC deal. I'm sure you saw it over the last couple of days. 7 years, $7.7 billion. Ridiculous number for UFC broadcast rights with Paramount Plus. Meanwhile, boxing, ESPN just walked away from a top-ranked deal that it was paying like $90 million per year. So if you're looking for, tangible evidence of the fact that UFC has got a model that works and boxing has got a model that doesn't, there it is, right there in front of you.
Well, it's a shift in generation as well. Like I just finished mentioning with this Contender fan of mine that didn't remember the boxing, but he remembers the MMA. So it's a shifting, demographic of new fans, picking different sports. And there's a lot more channels nowadays, man. So, you can pick from anything you want, not only when it comes to MMA and boxing, but kickboxing, like Todd Grisham doing over there in Belgium or wherever he is in France. So any mixed martial arts, any kind of boxing, any combat sport, you're going to find it and you're going to become a fan. But credit to MMA and the UFC and Dana White and everyone else, because they built that from the ground up. So I got to give them the props.
Yeah, ridiculous deal for UFC, taking boxing or taking MMA off pay-per-view for the foreseeable future. All right, before we get into our topic, Sergio, as we do every week, we are going to give our winners and our losers. I will start with you. Who is your winner of the week?
Dillian Whyte. I got to give the body snatcher, or like they called him this past weekend, the baby snatcher, his credit. I got to give him his flowers, Chris Mannix, because at 37 years old, this man is still competing against the absolute best. And even though he's going to be an underdog against Moses Itauma, this is a dangerous fight for Itauma, because when it comes to the body snatcher, he's only lost to 3 champions. And one of those he avenged in Povetkin. The other 2 were Joshua and when he got knocked out by Fury. But that's nothing to sneeze at, man. This guy's like the Ron Lyle of the UK. He's fought the best, he's competed with the best, and he's going to go down as one of those fighters that had it all, but just couldn't cross that championship finish line. So that's my winner of the week, Dillian Whyte.
I have my concerns about Dillian heading into this fight, which we'll get to in a couple of minutes, but no question, he's going to get a nice paycheck out of it, and maybe he can expose some things in the young Moses Itauma. My winner of the week is a young fighter as well. It is Callum Walsh, the undefeated 154-pound contender. Callum Walsh is going to go up against another undefeated fighter in Fernando Vargas Jr. on September 13th, and he is going to do it on one of the biggest stages you can possibly do it on as the co-main event for Canelo Alvarez against Terence Crawford. Sergio, we've seen these co-mains on these Netflix shows serve as launching pads for fighters' careers. I mean, the Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano second fight that was on the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul undercard, that took off and did huge numbers because of its presence on that card. Canelo Crawford's going to be a massive event on September 13th, and a brand new audience is going to get exposed to Callum Walsh, who has been connected to Dana White, the promoter of this event, for a long time now. Dana puts on Callum's fights on UFC Fight Pass. Tom Loeffler is his promoter, but Callum Walsh getting this slot without being a world champion is a huge win for Callum Walsh. So bravo to Callum. He is my winner of the week. All right, give me your loser of the week.
Carlos Adames. I mean, he's coming off a draw, and he refuses to unify against Janibek Alim Kanuli, another world champion. I mean, the middleweight division is stagnant. You know, it's dorm right now. No one wants to talk about the middleweights because there's no champions. And these guys refuse to unify to bring attention to the division. So Carlos Adames, who's coming off a draw with Hamza Shiraz and is not a draw, refusing to become a draw and unify the titles against Janibek, that's my loser of the week.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of what happened or what's not happening with Adames and Janibek. I've seen Janibek calling for that Adames fight. I don't think Adames is afraid of Janibek. Like, he's got no reason.
I don't think he's afraid either, but I just think he's waiting for that Saudi money. He's waiting for a bigger name, someone that has just as much money as risk and reward to bring to the table. And Janibek, as we all know, doesn't bring that. Way too much risk, not enough reward. So I think, yeah, he's waiting for that Saudi money, but I don't think it's going to come this time. I think the belts this time around mean more than the money for Adames or any other middleweight.
Pretty good reward in potentially becoming a 3-belt champion at 160. But I agree with you on the idea of fighters waiting for Saudi money. It's another topic we're going to get into a little bit later in the show. My loser of the week are your pals over at the WBC, who are at it once again with their rating systems. In the last week, we have seen the WBC at 147 pounds move Manny Pacquiao to the number 1 slot just behind Mario Barrios. Pacquiao, of course, coming off a draw against Barrios. So what does the WBA do? They respond by moving Pacquiao from 5 to 1. This is all done, of course, to claim that Barrios has to defend his title against Pacquiao, to squeeze a little bit more money out of Manny Pacquiao. But Manny Pacquiao jumps Suleiman Sissoko, who was the number 1 guy before these ratings came out. And Suleiman Sissoko, just a couple of months ago, he beat Aegis Kavalauskas. He did nothing to not deserve to retain that slot at number 1. The other part of the WBC rankings that I noticed was Boots Ennis, who made his debut at junior middleweight, if you can call it that, at number 1 in the WBC's rankings there. He jumps over guys like Sergey Boachuk, a guy like Jesus Ramos. I think Boots is probably the real deal at 154, but maybe you give him one fight before you rank him at number 1. This is just more examples of sanctioning bodies behaving badly. You can even go down a list with the rest of them. The WBA continues to screw over Shakram Giasov, who is sitting there at number 1 in their 147-pound rankings. The WBO, just a few weeks ago, screwed over Diego Pacheco when they dropped him 2 slots after he beat Trevor McCumbee and was number 1. So all sanctioning bodies are terrible. This week, though, I think the WBC has been measurably worse.
Well, it's politics. It's politics. It's money. It's who brings a bigger wallet to the meeting, and that's always been
shouldn't
the
be.
case.
Shouldn't be.
I'm not saying it's right, Mannix, but it's like that in college. You would know that you got into a fancy Ivy League school because of money.
And Boston
Look,
College
money,
is not an Ivy League school for the 437th time. It's not an Ivy League school, and I didn't get into it because of money. You unbelievable moron! I did not get into this school because of money.
Legacy, money, background.
There's no legacy. I have no legacy.
Well, listen to me. That's the problem here with these sanctioning bodies. You bring money, you bring some kind of leverage to the table, you bring some kind of popular fighter to the table. They're going to move you up faster. I can bring up a lot of examples, but I don't want to throw a lot of fighters under the table. So I'll bring myself into this mix. I got a chance to fight Vernon Forrest, the all-time great Vernon Forrest, right out of the contender. I wasn't a top 10 opponent, but the WBC didn't even bother ranking me. I had popularity. I had I had a backing. I had money. So that caused me to fight Vernon Forrest and got an opportunity to win a title. And that was the title that I won was the WBC. But I didn't deserve, I wasn't the number one mandatory. Sergio Martinez was. But I was able to skip all that because of popularity, because of, I was backed by a lot of money, NBC money, network money, and I got the chance of a lifetime and capitalized. But certain fighters, certain people, certain athletes have the opportunity when it comes to these sanctioning bodies or when it comes to politics. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you that nothing's ever going to change. I just think it needs to be called out every time that it happens.
That's what we're doing.
I agree. Boxing rankings, and I've said this a million times, boxing rankings should be a meritocracy. I don't know enough about, were you ranked at all in the WBC rankings at 154 when you got that opportunity? Because you were not unworthy. You were not unworthy up to that point. Like you had accomplished something, winning the contender, beating credible guys. So you had, earned some cachet, some pedigree there. I don't know if you were you shouldn't have ranked number one.
Middleweight. That's the thing.
True. It was
not a junior middleweight.
Right.
I was a middleweight. I was a career-long middleweight. So I probably cracked the top 10 as a middleweight, maybe right outside of it, fringe contender, but not at junior middleweight. That was, I got put right to the front of the line, and just because of popularity. It was like a nightclub. Well, you wouldn't know about that because you're a geek in school, but eating cup of noodles. But yeah, when you're cool and people know you, you go to the front of the line. And that was me from as a teenager, young man, and as a fighter. So look, that's what it is when you have popularity in a name. And I got to the front of the line at the WBC rankings because I won a reality show.
I feel like everything about the college experience you got from either Animal House or Van Wilder. Like every anecdote or every example of college life you put out there comes from one of those movies. It's just true.
I'm not going to lie. It does come from movies, and it comes from seeing the transition, the physical transition that I've seen from you wearing glasses, oversized clothes, and being a geek to buying expensive clothes, getting your hair cut and dyeing your hair, trying to look cool like me.
Don't dye my hair. I don't dye my hair. That is not accurate. Inaccurate. All right. My point, just to put a button on it, like if I am the representative for Suleiman Sissoko, I am pissed off. If I am representatives of Sergey Boachuk and Jesus Ramos, I am pissed off. If I am Matchroom and I just saw my prize prospect, Diego Pacheco, get jumped by Terrence Crawford, who is moving up 2 weight classes to fight for the first time at 168, and by Hamza Shiraz, who has 1 win at 168 pounds, I would be pissed off. These sanctioning bodies, wonder why nobody's rushing to defend them when, this TKO backed bill is going through the House of Representatives that would, essentially make them less relevant. This is why, because they do crap like this that makes it seem like your ranking should just go to the highest bidder. That's my only point on this, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last time that we talk about it. All right, let's jump into the main part of the show here. On Saturday, Moses Itauma, the 20-year-old undefeated heavyweight prospect, will face Dillian Whyte in the main event of what is another stacked card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Sergio Itauma has knocked out 8 straight opponents and hasn't let anyone get out of the second round in any of them up until this point. Dillian Whyte, meanwhile, has won 3 straight since his loss to Tyson Fury in 2022, all against lesser competition, it should be noted. The popular opinion, Sergio, is that Itauma will blow through Dillian Whyte. What say you?
What say me is that he's not going to blow through Dillian Whyte because Dillian Whyte is a gatekeeper. He's a championship level fighter that never crossed that finish line, but he only lost 3 times against 3 world champions. One of them he avenged in Povetkin. There's no shame getting knocked out by Anthony Joshua when Joshua was knocking out everyone, had the highest percentage knockout ratio. There's no shame in losing to Tyson Fury, a generational talent. So Dillian Whyte, he's one of these guys that always puts up a great fight. Always puts up a great fight against great names, but never became a champion. Think of Ron Lyle. Remember Ron Lyle? He fought Ali. He went to war with George Foreman. He had other really good, solid names on his resume, but he never became champion on the heavyweight division. Think of Obakar, 0-4. He fought all the 4 monsters at welterweight, was never able to cross that finish line. But we remember these names, not as champions, but as guys that gave champions hell. So I just think that's what Dillian Whyte is. And Moses Itauma is going to have his young hands full. With a dozen fights, Dillian Whyte's the type of guy that could put him in his place. Not with skill, because, we know that Itauma's a real deal. I mean, footwork, he's a southpaw, speed. He has a great trainer in his corner. He has a great promoter backing him. Sky's the limit for this kid. But Dillian Whyte, he could be a spoiler. He can be a spoiler with all that experience. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He has big power. He could take a big punch. And at this point of his career, experience matters. Experience matters, man. So I just think this is the fight we see what we have with Moses Itauma. If you want to call him the next Mike Tyson, then he has to blast through a guy like Dillian Whyte, because that's what Mike Tyson was doing at 19 years old. He was knocking out guys that already were ready for a world title shot. And that's what I think Itauma needs to do. If he blasts through Dillian Whyte, we got a future star in our hands.
The over-under in this fight is 4.5 rounds, and I'm inclined to take the under in it. That's how good I think Moses Itauma is. And you mentioned Ron Lyle, and I agree. Ron Lyle, there's some similarities in terms of their career arcs, I guess. But Ron Lyle, against all the guys you mentioned, he got knocked out. He got knocked out by George Foreman. He got knocked out by Jerry Cooney. He got knocked out by Lynn Ward. All these things happened later in his career, but he got knocked out. This is what I'm talking about. When he gets in the ring with these guys that are a little bit better, he's getting knocked out. And that's what I think is going to happen here with Dillian Whyte. Look, Dillian has taken a lot of arrows over the last couple of weeks, and you can see during some of his interviews in Saudi Arabia that he's not happy about it. He's got into it with our friend Adi Oladipo, got into it with our pal Barry Jones. Like, he's mixing it up with the people that don't think he has much of a chance. But when I look at this matchup, I don't see a real pathway to victory for Dillian Whyte. Not this version of Dillian. And we've done this show a bunch, and you've talked about Dillian in the past. You keep talking about this 3-fight winning streak like he's beating a murderer's row. He beat Jermaine Franklin in what was a very competitive fight.
Good
he beat
fighter.
Christian Hammer, who's washed, and he beat Ebenezer Teta, who I'd never heard of before that fight. And in that fight against Teta, he weighed 261 pounds. So I haven't seen that. By the way, all 3 of those fights happened in a 3-year span. He's fought 3 times since that loss to Tyson Fury in 2022. And you talk all the time about the importance of activity, guys staying busy. That's not happening with Dillian Whyte. And Dillian, that left hook is real. The power on that shot is real. If he can sit down on that punch and land it, he can hurt Itauma. But Sergio, I watch Itauma, and I see the real thing. I see a guy with hand speed that you don't see in the heavyweight division. I see a guy that can hurt you just by touching you. I see a guy with an instinct to put you out of there the second he gets you hurt. Like, he's on this 8-fight winning streak, and they haven't been against world beaters, but they have been against some pretty decent guys. Like, Dempsey McKeon was no pushover. He was another gatekeeper that he blew through inside 2 rounds. So I think this is a very, very tough fight for Dillian Whyte. I'm hoping he got a real big payday out of this, because I think this is the kind of fight that he could really get hurt in.
Chris Mannix, you're the last person that should be body shaming anyone, right? Because I seen you without a shirt.
My God.
That left hook's not going to be enough against a southpaw. You need a right hand. Dillian Whyte does have a big right hand, so that's going to be key. And of course, they call him the body snatcher. Go to the body. Anytime you're dealing with a young fighter, especially a southpaw, that liver is going to be closer to you, to the left hand. So if Dillian Whyte can bring more than just experience to the table, more than the 3-fight win streak I keep talking about, and that confidence and that last chance mentality, if he can bring a game plan, and it's going to be the left hand, it's going to be that body shot to the right side of the southpaw. I think that's going to be one. And the left hook. Dillian Whyte has a mean left hook. He hurt Joshua in that fight. He had him rocked on his toes.
How many years ago was that?
Doesn't matter. He has that left hook.
Of course it matters. Of course it matters. I think he weighed 247 pounds for that fight against Joshua.
Power and experience are... I hate to say the last thing to go, but power and experience last longer than speed and technique and all that other stuff. So I think Dillian Whyte has a chip on his shoulder, and that's the reason he's calling out these reporters and all these expert analysts, because he knows, like, man, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know the experience I got. There's a new motivation to him, all right? So I'm going to give him a chance to go over 4 rounds, right? So I'm saying it here, Mannix. I'm going against your pick. I think his experience, his strength, the chip on his shoulder, and the fact that he thinks he's staring a 20-year-old kid in the face saying, man, I got so much experience over you, age over you. I think power maybe, even though Itauma's knocking out everyone right now, Dillian Whyte can crack too. So I think if they get an exchange, Dillian Whyte has a chance to get some respect. But if Itauma, on the other hand, on the flip side of the coin, if Itauma starts using those fresh legs and getting out of the early rounds and not make it a physical fight, not give Dillian Whyte what he wants, which is a firefight, then this is going to be an easy fight for Itauma. And I think he knocks out Whyte later in the fight. But if they go in the middle of the ring in the exchange, give Dillian Whyte any kind of chance to do something great.
You think Dillian Whyte wins a firefight with Moses Itauma? You really think
It'll be foolish of the 20-year-old to get in a firefight with a veteran and a former 3-time world title challenger in Dillian Whyte. It'll be stupidity. So I think if he's young and immature enough to do that against Dillian Whyte has a chance to catch him and clip him in a firefight. Yes, I do, especially if he's throwing those body shots that he's known for. Because I'm telling you, the southpaw angle is going to be easy to land that left hand. So it all comes down to Moses Itauma and Ben Davison. What type of game plan?
There's the guy that
do they want to take out the old man early, or do they want to take him in later into the fight and sink and destroy this man later? And I think that'll be the smart thing to do. The latter.
You mentioned Ben Davison, and Ben Davison I think is a wild card in all this because you and I both agree Ben Davison is one of the smarter minds in all of boxing when it comes to cornermen. And Ben Davison is going to come into this fight with a game plan. And Sergio, I promise you that game plan is going to be throwing a lot of uppercuts. What have we seen from Dillian Whyte in recent fights? A vulnerability to the uppercut. Alexander Povetkin back in 2020, knocked him out with an uppercut. Tyson Fury in 2022 knocked him out with an uppercut. Ben Davison is a film nerd. He studies and studies and studies the tape on the opponents of his fighters. And I bet anything that in that game plan that he's been cooking up with his team, there's going to be a steady diet of uppercuts coming the way of Dillian Whyte. If Dillian gets caught by an uppercut from Moses Itauma, which is going to come with the kind of speed that he hasn't seen from any of his recent opponents. I think Moses Itauma has as much speed as any heavyweight right now in all of boxing. Faster than Alexander Usyk, faster than Andy Ruiz, faster than some of these guys that are more accomplished. If he gets clipped with an uppercut with that kind of speed, lights out for Dillian Whyte. That's all I'm saying.
You think it's going to be an uppercut, and I think it's going to be a right hook. And as I say in telecast all the time, if you remember and you have your ears open, what's the most dangerous thing in boxing that I tell you from a southpaw? A southpaw with a right hook. That's the most dangerous thing because you don't prepare from that as an orthodox fighter. So when you have a mean right hook from that left-handed stance, just like Moses Itauma, that's going to be a good night for Dillian Whyte. You say it's the uppercut, I say it's a right hook.
I've seen Itauma throw uppercuts in his fights. I've seen him score with those uppercuts, and I think Ben Davison knows just how vulnerable Dillian is to those uppercuts. So I think that's going to be the shot that either stops him or changes the entire course of the fight. We'll see. I think we're both, by the way, predicting a Moses Itauma win. You just think it's going to take a little bit longer, is what you're.
Yeah, I think Dillian Whyte brings. He's going to get the respect of the young man. I think he still stops him, but not under 4.
All right. Well, it's 4.5, so it's remember that into the 5th round. It's going to go.
There you go. Okay,
you still taking the 4.5?
I'm still taking the over, man. I think Dillian Whyte. You got to give respect to this man. So I think, I'm very comfortable picking the over in this fight. I think once he gets to the middle rounds, 6, 7 rounds, that's when Tauma's footwork, his youth, his eagerness, and the fact that this kid, from what I read and from what I see, he's a hard worker. You know, he's smart. He's a hard worker. He has a great trainer. He has a great promoter. He has everything going, and he passes the eye test. I don't see many flaws watching this kid. So I think he stopped Dillian Whyte, but it's not going to be easy.
Look, I'm very curious to see what Dillian comes in at weight-wise. I think if he's in the 240s, high 250s, or low 250s, I think it could be interesting. If he's above 260, like he was in his last fight, which is the heaviest he's weighed since his win over Marius Wack, I think that's where Dillian is going to be in some trouble.
One more thing here. I've been reading about comparisons with Moses Itauma with Mike Tyson wanting to become the youngest heavyweight champion. I don't think that happens, but I think there's going to be a lot of similarities if Moses Itauma, who's used to getting knockouts in the first round and the second round, if he can do that against a fighter like Dillian Whyte, who goes rounds, and some of the biggest punchers at heavyweight couldn't do that. If he can knock this guy out and put that name on his resume as a first round or second round knockout, those Mike Tyson comparisons are only going to get bigger and bigger and louder and louder. And now we're going to start putting some championship respect on Moses Itauma's name.
By the way, Moses Itauma he was getting these Tyson comps. Tyson was about 5'10". Moses Itauma is over 6'4". Like Itauma is a big guy. So I think he could be a different version of Mike Tyson if he winds up getting a win against the Dillian Whyte in great fashion. We touched on Anthony Joshua a moment ago, and I want to get into some of the latest around AJ because there's always something new with Anthony Joshua. There is now a new contender in the AJ sweepstakes, and his name is Andre Ward. The Hall of Fame former 168 and 175-pound champion has thrown his hat in the ring. Ward has not fought since 2017 when he knocked out Sergey Kovalev, and he has never fought heavier than light heavyweight. Out of nowhere, Sergio, he is calling out Anthony Joshua. What do you think of Andre Ward calling out AJ?
You know, Andre Ward has had a perfect career. A perfect career from the amateurs, winning a gold medal for the United States. A perfect, flawless career, going undefeated and unblemished as a 2-division world champion, as a professional. A perfect record post-boxing, making the Hall of Fame. What the hell is Andre SOG Ward doing, coming back, or even talking about fighting a 2-time heavyweight champion of the world? That right there is hubris. That's arrogance, and that's the perfect greatness of a fighter. I hate to say it, Mannix. I went from negative to positive because me and you can't put ourselves in greatness shoes, but every great fighter believes they can do that. Muhammad Ali came back. It wasn't good. Oscar De La Hoya came back. It wasn't good. Sugar Ray Leonard came back. It wasn't good. George Foreman came back. It was good for him, but he's a heavyweight, and he was one of the top 3 biggest punchers in boxing history. Andre Ward wasn't a puncher at 168 or 175. Now he wants to go up to heavyweight, where he's going to be outweighed by 50 plus pounds. He's going to be outsized. He's going to be shorter by like 6 inches. He's going to be the way smaller, man. This is just ridiculous. I hate to be negative of Andre Ward because he's perfection. You know, Andre Ward is what every fighter wants to be. Andre Ward, Ricardo Lopez, Floyd Mayweather Jr., you make money, you become great, you enter the Hall of Fame, and you exit undefeated. That's a perfect strategy and a perfect record. Andre Ward's going back on his word just because of that itch that he has. Every fighter gets that itch. Mind you, I get that itch. But you have to realize, man, it's not for me anymore. It's a young man's sport. You can get hurt, especially if you're moving up to fight a giant. It doesn't matter that Anthony Joshua is vulnerable. He can't take a chin. People question his heart. He just got knocked out in his last fight. Yeah, all these things are red flags, but he's still a much bigger championship level fighter. And Andre Ward has been retired 8 years, man. 8 years. I could say if it was 4 years or 3 years like it was with Sugar Ray Leonard, but 8 years, that's going to almost be like George Foreman when he came back and won the heavyweight championship. But George Foreman had stayed busy fights in between leading to that fight. So I think it's lunacy and ignorance on the part of the great Andre Ward, because he is great, all-time great. But for him to be entertaining this, I don't like that. I don't like that look on such a great fighter.
You know, my first reaction was, it was people in boxing must really think that AJ is washed. I mean, honestly, like you've got Jake Paul thinking he's got a chance against AJ. You've got Tony Yoka thinking he's got a chance against AJ. And now you have Andre Ward, 8 years removed from his last fight at light heavyweight, believing he's got a chance against AJ. It's worth noting, Sergio, that this is not new necessarily. Like there was talk about Andre Ward against AJ a few years ago. Like this was back when Andre Ward was more recently retired, and it was speculated on. Andre didn't really do much about it back then. This is the first time we're seeing him aggressively say, I will come out of retirement to fight Anthony Joshua. And you and I are in agreement. Andre Ward was one of my favorite fighters in the 2010s. He was actually my fighter of the decade when I had to write about one for Sports Illustrated.
I remember you asked for my opinion, and I said Andre Ward, yeah.
Yeah, I took a lot of heat for that because people thought, Floyd Mayweather, people thought Manny Pacquiao, but the wins that Andre Ward had in the 7 years he fought during that decade were incredibly impressive. They were high-level wins buttoned by the 2 wins over Sergey Kovalev. So I am a huge fan of Andre Ward, the boxer. In his era, I would have made him a favorite against anyone from 168 to 175. That being said, 8 years out of the ring means something. Going up to heavyweight means something. Fighting a puncher like Anthony Joshua means something. When we were having the conversation recently about AJ against Jake Paul, one of the things I said was like, hey man, like Look at what AJ did to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou, who is a combat sports fighter, who went 10 rounds with Tyson Fury, couldn't go 2 with Anthony Joshua. Now, Andre Ward is better than Francis Ngannou as a boxer, even at this stage of his life and career. But at his size, going up to that weight class, it is inevitable, Sergio, that he's going to eat a right hand. Even against Sergey Kovalev, he ate a right hand. He went down against Sergey Kovalev in their first fight. He's going to eat one of those punches, and that is not going to go well for Andre Ward. I'm with you. I wish that Andre, and I can't fault the guy for thinking he's still got it. You see him around town, he looks like he's in great shape. I'm sure if he came back at his weight class, he might be able to win a couple of fights if he wanted to. But going up to heavyweight and facing a guy who is still one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division, I can't rubber stamp that. I can't.
No, you can't rubber stamp it because he's not a puncher, man. He's not a heavyweight. Heavyweights can get advantage. They have the luxury of having that power, the magic eraser. But when you don't have power, and especially you're fighting out of a weight class you're not familiar with, it's going to be more like Sugar Ray Leonard against Hector Camacho. It's not going to be Sugar Ray Leonard against Marvin Hagler, where he was out of 3 years out of the ring, and he came back and barely squeaked out of a decision against Marvin Hagler. No, this is going to be a statement win by a bigger fighter and a heavyweight former champion in Anthony Joshua. I mean, a glancing shot can hurt you. Mm-hmm. A grazing shot can hurt you. And we've seen Ward get hit with glancing shots, and he didn't respond good against Kovalev. He didn't respond good against other fighters. If you go back to when he was a super middleweight, Darnell Boone. There you go. See, you know your stuff. Yeah, man, I've seen him react funny. But Andre Ward is an all-time great fighter, Hall of Fame fighter with a perfect and infallible career. What the hell is he doing trying to come back and ruin and blemish that and imbue his perfect record? I don't get it.
It's tough. It's tough to fully let it go. I would have thought by now Andre would be done with it. He's got a good business going with his podcast network. He was an excellent commentator for a lot of years with ESPN. But I mean, you can speak this better than I could, but I guess it just never leaves you, right? that desire to prove that you can still compete. It never.
Sugar Ray Leonard once told me, when I asked him what's the greatest thing about being at the top of the game, the money, the fame. And he always said that itch, that itch to prove people wrong, coming out to the limelight, the roar of the crowd. When you retire from that, and you hear it all the time, it sounds cliche, you can't get those chills anywhere else. You can't replace it with drugs and gambling and womanizing. You can't replace that thrill, man. And Andre Ward's always been a level-headed guy. He's been one of these guys that didn't need all that adrenaline like a Mike Tyson did outside the ring, or a lot of these fighters needed that stimulation outside the ring. Andre Ward, just like George Foreman, is a spiritual man, a pastor outside the ring. He's one of these guys that you look up to outside and inside the ring. But just like George Foreman, that itch is there. It's not need, it's that itch to prove that you can still do something great. And that's what made him great over and over and over, all the way till he was a kid winning a Olympic gold medal for the United States. So, yeah, man, it's ignorance is bliss, but this kind of ignorance gets you hurt when you're a 40-year-old man.
All right, let's talk for a moment about Boots Ennis, who has an opponent set and ready to go for October 11th. Finally, Boots is going to make his debut at 154 pounds. Boots is going to face Wisman Lima, a once-beaten junior middleweight contender. There's been some blowback, Sergio, given the anonymity of Lima, which you just kind of exemplified right there. Lima lost his biggest fight to date, a decision against Tyrone McKenna about 4 or 5 fights ago. Your thoughts on Boots versus Lima?
I think the capital of Peru, Chris Mannix. I think of Lima, I think of limon, lime in Spanish. I don't know who this guy is, and it's not a good look for Boots. I can understand why Boots went back and fought Karen Chukatsian, but at least he was a number one contender who he went the distance with.
He had to fight him. Twice he had to fight him. Ordered to fight him to keep his belt.
I can understand those 2 fights because Chukatsian put himself into position to fight for world champion. But Lima, on the other hand, he's already been knocked out by a title challenger, not a world champion.
He wasn't knocked out. He lost by decision.
Oh, well, he lost by decision. I don't even know because I haven't even studied this guy. I looked at his record and I'm like, who? I don't have any idea. And he comes from a part of a country where boxing is not popular. Portugal, right? That's for soccer, man. I mean, those are for, it's not a good look for Boots, man. I'm just saying that right now. It's not a good look for him. And especially if he struggles with this guy if he struggles with them, the longer this fight goes, the worse it's going to look for Jaron Ennis, man. I just don't like this fight. Even as a stay busy fight, even as a fight to test your waters at 154, I hate it. I hate it, man. I got to keep it real. I'm a big fan of Boots, huge fan of him. I think he's the future of boxing, but this is just a step in the wrong direction in order to become a star.
All right. Well, I disagree. If you're going to say that Lima isn't the right guy for him to fight in his first fight at 154 pounds, you're going to have to tell me who the right guy is, because Lima was not the first choice of Matchroom when trying to make this fight. They went to Sergey Bohachuk. Bohachuk turned them down. They went to Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly turned them down. They went to a couple of other guys that had negotiations with them for this fight. They couldn't close the deal. Lima was the one that was available. Lima was the one willing to step up to take the fight. And I know he doesn't have a great name, and I know you're kind of comparing him to a soccer player, which doesn't make any sense, but he's won, I think, 4 fights in a row since his decision defeat to Aaron McKenna, who is still a undefeated fighter, or was still a contender. I don't know if Aaron McKenna is still undefeated.
I'll tell you who you match him up with, Mannix.
Hold on. I'm not done with this yet. I'm not done with this point yet, right? So in his last 4 fights, 4 wins, he has faced 3 undefeated fighters, including one at 160 pounds, and 1 fighter with 1 loss. So he has fought solid competition since that decision win to Aaron McKenna. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, he's not a big name, but if you can't point to me at a big-ish name, remember, he wasn't going to fight a Virgil Ortiz in his first time out. He wasn't going to fight a Sebastian Fundora in his first time out. He was looking for a top 10 type of guy to fight. And lo and behold, I look at the rankings. Lima has is ranked by 3 of the 4 sanctioning bodies inside the top 10. So this is kind of exactly the guy that Matchroom was looking for.
And I think he holds one of these straps, right? He's an IBO champion.
He's the IBO title, which is a much lesser version.
Okay, look, if you promote it and sell it like that, I understand. But look, I would rather him get a soft touch that everyone expects you to knock out real quick, kind of like when Virgil Ortiz moved up to 54 and he fought Frederick Lawson. That was a familiar name, Lawson. Lima on that end. I don't know any boxing.
What are you talking about? Frederick Lawson.
Lawson had fights against. Let's not make this a Frederick Lawson type show.
No,
right?
but let's not let you get away with this idea. Let's not let you get away with this idea that Frederick Lawson is some kind of name.
Look at Lawson's box rec.
Okay.
There you go. You got a computer, and while you're looking him up and doing your research, Mannix, Lawson at least had some kind of familiar names against him. And yes, of course, Ortiz blew him out in three minutes flat or under that. But that's what I think Boots Ennis should have done when he's testing out the waters at junior middleweight. Just flatten out somebody instead of making a main event, a big card, taking it back to Philly against Lima. You should have just done a quick little stay busy fight in a smaller venue against a guy like Lawson.
Do you do any homework when you come into this show? Frederick Lawson.
I did when I
Frederick Lawson. Hold on. Frederick Lawson has some names on his resume. That's
all I said.
But they came after. They came after Virgil Ortiz. He fought Alexis Rocha after Virgil Ortiz. He fought Giovanni Santillon after Virgil Ortiz. He got knocked out by both those guys. Coming into the fight with Virgil Ortiz, Frederick Lawson had 2 things going for him. One, he was 2-3 in his last 5 fights with knockout losses to Charles Hatley and Juan Ruiz. And he was coming in with the possibility that he might have brain damage. You remember that? That's why this fight was stopped so quickly. It was questionable because there was some wondering if Frederick Lawson still had brain damage coming into this fight. The idea that you think Frederick Lawson is some kind of improvement over Lima is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, you almost forgot his name over the guy.
I was forgetting how to pronounce his first name. It's pronounced Wiesmann. I know his name. I was forgetting how to pronounce his first name.
That's my point here. His name's forgettable, Mannix, and he comes from a part of the world where boxing's not prevalent, man. It's not. How many Portuguese champions do you know? I know 0. I mean, that's just the way it is, man. You're fighting a guy that has a good record, that is not known, that has one of these hubcap titles, IBO. Yeah, it makes sense if you sell it right. But if you really look at the fights and watch Lima, I did watch some tape on Lima. He's not a good fighter. And Boots is an exceptional fighter. I just wish he would have got a name that's been knocked out at 54.
But you can't name one. You the only name I could think of maybe. You name who?
Did. Huh?
Who? Frederick Lawson?
No, a Frederick Lawson type fighter where he's no familiar because he's a B side of other names.
Great guy with guy. No, but you are. I don't know why we're crossing wires here. Like, you're giving Frederick Lawson credit for fights he didn't have coming into the Virgil Ortiz fight. He didn't have that fight against Santillana.
But other A side names, even after getting knocked out by Ortiz, he kept getting fights by names because
two guys. That was it. That was it. Two guys. He got knocked out by both of them. After Ortiz, coming into the Ortiz fight, Sergio, he had fought nobody. He had no real wins. He got knocked out by Charles Hadley. That was probably the best guy that he'd been in with.
Hadley's a
probably
familiar
the best
name.
guy.
Hadley's a familiar name. See, these are familiar names. That's all I ask. Put a familiar name there. I don't care who it is. Just not an unfamiliar guy from Portugal.
You had never, ever... Did you call the Virgil...
I did.
I
looked down
you had never heard of Lawson coming into that fight. Never, ever. No, I don't believe you. I think you're making it up.
No, because he sounded like British royalty. Frederick.
Okay.
So
I didn't see you didn't do your homework on the guy. I didn't see you didn't do your homework on the guy. So coming in, you didn't know who he was. All I'm saying is that Weissman Lima, Sergio, is ranked top 10 by 3 of the 4 sanctioning bodies. Frederick Lawson was not. Weissman Lima has fought 4 times since that decision loss to Aaron McKenna, beat 3 guys with undefeated records and 1 guy with 1 loss. I'm not sitting here and telling you he's a world beater, but I know from everything that Matchroom said and Boots' team said that they weren't looking for a world beater in this fight. They wanted a good, solid top 10 guy before they go on and hopefully face Virgil Ortiz by February of next year. They're getting it, is all I'm saying. Weissman Lima is exactly the kind of guy that they're looking for.
Weissman Lima. This will be the first and the last time you hear of this name. But if you sell that as an IBO champion, a guy with a good record,
I don't want to sell it as an IBO champion. Nobody cares about the IBO
belts. Then I'm
belts.
fine with it. But as far as just namesake, name recognition, the weight that your name brings, Lima is a step backwards. I'm just telling you the truth.
There is, on no planet is Lima a step backwards from a Frederick Lawson fighter. Frederick Lawson, who followed up the first round knockout loss to Virgil Ortiz with a 7th round knockout to Alexis Rocha. We called that fight. That was an obliteration. And a first round knockout to Giovanni Santillana. So don't sit there and tell me that Frederick Lawson coming into that fight was some kind of household name or recognizable property. He was not. Under any circumstances, he was not. Last thing.
You should name your unborn son Frederick Lawson. Frederick Lawson Maddox.
Yes, that's my plan. You rename
your. It sounds regal. It sounds like a member of Parliament. Frederick.
Nobody in my immediate family is British.
Your middle name's Fenton, bro. Don't stop. Don't give me no name.
What is your middle name?
I don't have one because middle names are superfluous.
So. No, that's not. That's not true. I've got a confirmation name too. Good Catholic over here. All right. Last thing for you is, you talked earlier about guys that are waiting for the Saudi money. And I think you're right. I think that's becoming a bit of a problem in boxing, a bit of an obstacle for boxing promoters to overcome. Josh Kelly is an example. I saw Josh Kelly's trainer say recently that the initial offer for Kelly to fight Boots was less than the offer that Kelly got to face Ishmael Davis back in 2024. The difference, of course, is that the Ishmael Davis fight was a Riyadh season card. That was, I believe it was the AJ Dubois fight, if I'm not mistaken. That was a Riyadh season event where the purses are jacked up for fights like that. Outside of those types of events, the purses are what they've largely been up until this point. And we're seeing situations like the Kelly situation where Kelly turns down a very good fight for him, a chance for him to fight a top guy at 154 because the money is not super huge. I've been talking to people about the potential for Richardson Hitchens, Teofimo Lopez fight, and the messaging I've been getting back is that fight probably doesn't happen unless Turki Al-Sheikh gets involved and says he wants it because there's not enough money in the traditional pot that there is in these 4 or 5 times per year pots that Turki puts together for his fight card. So do you think this is becoming a problem in boxing where fighters are just going to sit around and wait until that Turki money becomes available?
I don't think it become a problem, but we are going to see less activity. But when it comes to Josh Kelly, he doesn't have the luxury for activity. He's 31 years old. He's not a world championship fighter. He's in a division that's loaded with monsters and names. What is he doing? Josh Kelly should jump at any opportunity that he is given on the championship level because time is ticking. So on his part, I don't agree. But if you're dealing with a guy in his mid 20s and late 20s, I understand. You have the luxury to wait for a little bit of time to get that Saudi bag. But no, I think Josh Kelly, it's a bad look for him, especially when he's already been stopped. Like I was talking about earlier, he got stopped by a non-champion in David Avanesian. So if you've been stopped and you have a draw on your record, you have blemishes, you haven't fought for world champion, what are you doing and what are you waiting for? Maybe, and this is my opinion here, maybe he knows his limits. Maybe Josh Kelly and Team Kelly know that, man, I can't beat none of these guys at 140. I can't beat Teofimo, Richardson, Hitchens, another Regal name there, by the way. Antoine Russell. I can't beat these guys like Matias. He's outnumbered. He's outsized. He's outmanned. He's outpowered. Josh Kelly knows his limits, and he's waiting for the right time to cash in on that little reputation that he has. So if that's the case, then maybe he's making a calculated move, not taking these fights. But it's a bad look, and I think it's a bad decision.
Well, what it comes down to is fighters want to be paid more than they're worth, right? Like Josh Kelly, when he fought Ishmael Davis, I went back and watched that fight yesterday. There was nobody in that venue. Wembley Stadium, there was nobody there. It was in front of a virtually empty arena. He benefited because Turki Al-Sheikh wanted a deep card, and Josh Kelly is still a name over in the UK.
But he's not a name overall. Josh Kelly sounds like
I agree. Look,
Josh Kelly sounds like a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. No,
that would be Jim
over here in the
Kelly,
States. He's not known, so he should accept whatever's thrown his way.
Look, Josh Kelly in a fight with Boots Ennis brings very little to the table, right? Like he brings his record, which is still pretty good, and he brings his ranking, which is top 5 in the WBO. So that is his value to a fight like that, along with some name recognition because he does have a little bit of that. I don't know what Matchroom offered him ultimately. I don't know what that number is, but comparing it to what he got against Ishmael Davis is just apples and oranges. Like you're just not getting paid commensurate with what you bring to the table on fight cards like that. Look, I think it's great for fighters when they get it. You know, fighters, I've always said, should make as much money as they possibly can. This is an unforgiving business with no pension plan, no 401k, nobody looking out for you, no health insurance when your career is over. So get as much as you can. But if you're sitting around waiting for Turki Al-Sheikh to wake up one day and be like, you know what? I want Josh Kelly on my next fight's undercard. Or you know what? I think Richardson Hitchens against Teofimo Lopez is a great fight for Ring 5 in February of 2026. That is not a good strategy to build a career, to build momentum, and to ultimately make more money. I'm sure fighters and a lot of people, myself included, hope this Turkey era goes on for a while because we're getting big fights. Sometimes they're in different time zones. You have to get up a little bit earlier to watch them. You're not used to it. But these are great fights. The ring card happening in November is a fantastic fight card. Getting Benavidez against Yard, Haney against Brian Norman. You get Bam in a title unification fight against Puma Martinez. That is electric. I'll be glued to my TV, for that fight. But you can't, if you're a fighter and you're waiting around and all of a sudden you're fighting once a year, sometimes twice a year, that's not a good strategy for building a career because eventually this may all go away. And you're looking around going, what do I have then? Nobody wants to work with me. I haven't built a fan base. What do I have left outside of whatever Turki Al-Sheikh's going to give me?
Yep. And a lot of fighters that are stuck to a contract where they have a minimum, they don't mind being stagnant and waiting for the right opportunity because they're going to get paid regardless. But I don't think Kelly's in that position. I mean, he's not a world champion. He's not a former champion. You can't sell him as a former world titleist. So what is his cachet? What does he bring? I don't even think his name brings enough to the table. So if you don't have that title of former champion or at least one big win where you've already beaten the odds ones. I'm talking about a big win against a former champion or a champion or a top fighter. Then you can bring that. You can sell that and bring that to the table. But man, Kelly doesn't bring none of that, and he's 31 years old. So what is he waiting for?
Putting aside Josh Kelly, like even Teofimo against Hitchens, like if that fight really is waiting on Turkey to step forward and put up, an obscene amount of money to make it happen, that's a mistake. Like, that's a fight that you could make in New York City. That's a fight you theoretically could put in the big room at Madison Square Garden in the fall. Teofimo has fought there before. Richardson Hitchens a couple of times in the small room. Hitchens coming off the most fan-friendly win of his professional career. Teofimo just, dominated his last fight against Arnold Barboza. Like, that's a real New York fight where you can make pretty good money. Not the great money that is probably out there if Turkey gets interested in it, but you could still make good money. And I hate seeing fighters just walk away from that because they're crossing their fingers and hoping that, Turkey steps up and wants to make whatever fight they want to make happen. That's kind of my problem with the current situation, the current climate with some of these fighters that are out there. All right, when we come back, I'll be joined by a guy that is fighting over in Riyadh, former 126-pound champion Raymond Ford. All right, Ray Ford is joining me, 126-pound champion, 2-0 now in the 130-pound division, getting ready to fight in Saudi Arabia. Second trip to Saudi Arabia. He'll take on Abraham Nova on Saturday. And I want to get into that, Ray, but I spent a lot of time, probably too much time, on YouTube watching boxing interviews and seeing what's going on there. And like, my algorithm is tuned to this Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul stuff. Like, I see so much Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul stuff on YouTube now. It seems like those two guys might actually fight. What do you think as a boxer of Jake Paul stepping up to fight AJ?
Hats off to him. I think it could be a big fight. Definitely, he gonna bring his fans, and AJ got a big following too. So I think that's a big fight for boxing, and I feel like it's a good turn for boxing because boxing is looking for big fights and that excitement, and I feel like that's something that the people would be excited to see.
I'd be interested. I'll tell you that much. I think it's a little crazy to step in with a guy like AJ, but it shows some stones on Jake Paul. I think that's for sure. All right, so you're fighting Abraham Nova. The question I've had over the last few months is, why is Raymond Ford not fighting Sugar Nunez? We've got Sugar Nunez fighting in September in Mexico. You're fighting in August over in Saudi Arabia. I know you've been calling for that fight for some time. What's your understanding of why that fight isn't happening now?
I mean, from what I was told, I was told he wasn't fighting in September because of his personal life that he got going on, and because I was looking forward to fighting him as soon as possible, like right after his fight. It could have been September. I think September was one of the dates that my manager brought up to to my promoter. Yeah, we've been trying to, get Nunez, but, I guess he wanted his tune-ups and everything like that. They've been telling me I was going to have to wait 12 to 16 months to fight him. So that's why we really just been, trying to stay active and just, push an issue somewhere else, whether it's WBA, WBC, or even WBL. So we're trying to get one of these world champions.
So you think that Nunez was maybe being less than honest about whether or not he was going to fight in the fall of this year?
I really don't know. It could be his team. Yeah, I really can't say what it is with them. I don't know.
So you were originally scheduled to face Anthony Kakachi over in Saudi. Kakachi had to back out. Was that a fight date you wanted to keep no matter what? Did you think it might fall apart? You have to look somewhere else. Kind of what happened in the aftermath of Kakachi bowing out?
Nothing really happened. I kept training. I was already in camp, so of course that was the date that I still wanted to be on because I already started my camp and mentally I already started to lock in and knowing I'm getting ready to fight on that day. So yeah, the energy been the same. I knew kind of early that they was going to give me a replacement. So, yeah, it was nothing to really worry about. Can't been the same.
So you were great at 126, had, the best fight of the year against Kolmatov a couple of years ago. At 130, you're 2-0. No knockouts yet, but both of your wins have been really entertaining. Like, you have been probably more aggressive in these two fights than you've been in previous fights, at least to my eyes, watching you against Orlando Gonzalez, against Thomas Matisse. What's the difference for you, getting those 4 extra pounds? Like, how different do you feel in the ring?
I feel I feel I feel a lot different. I feel amazing. I feel much sharper, stronger. I feel faster. I feel like I can see shots better. Like I know like a lot of people who don't like cut weight and box won't understand this, but when I'm losing like a lot of weight, it kind of like makes me more unaware of like shots that's coming. Not unaware because I see shots like even when I was at 126, I would see them, but I just wouldn't have the energy to move out of the way or slip and things like that. So like now I'm able to do more. I have more energy in the ring, and I just feel great.
And you're walking guys down at this weight class.
Yeah,
You were more of a boxer, I thought, up until that Kolmatov fight at 126, and now just watching you walk down Thomas Matisse in your last fight, it's different. It's incredibly entertaining. I think it makes you much more valuable to boxing promoters. Like, where does that come from? The switch to being someone that's walking guys down.
uh, these are things that I've been doing in camp. Like even like camps way before the Matisse and Komatov. These are things I've been doing and working on. So it was nothing new for me or my team to see. It was just something new that I put into the public eye. I know how to do a lot of things in the ring. I think like the main thing about it was probably just me like not really wanting to take a lot of punishment and in the Komatov fight, I had no choice but to, step forward because of my legs and me not being able to box how I wanted to. So I just had to, switch, turn that switch. But now at 130, like I said, like I'm more comfortable like at seeing shots and being able to slip, so I can stand right in front of you and be confident that I'm not going to get hit with anything, crazy. So um, I feel a lot, like I said, I feel a lot better at 130, and it's only going to get better from here on.
So you've got this fight coming up against Abraham Nova. You got to go back to Saudi Arabia to get
Yeah,
this fight, which comes with its rewards. Certainly, the payday that comes with it is nice,
yeah.
but it's a long trip. It's a different environment. What did you learn from your experience the first time, just being there, acclimating, that you think might help you the second time?
I mean, I just know what to expect more now as far as like the the crowd, the energy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it was a little different from what I'm used to seeing back at home and things like that. Um, but now I just feel like I got the experience. Um, I'm at a different weight class, so I really can't like even like blame anything going like fighting out of there outside in
Hmm.
Saudi Arabia. I really everything that I feel like I experienced the first time that went wrong was simply because I was weight drained. But
Hmm.
um yeah, it was cool out there. I liked everything that they was doing, the promotion and everything. They did have us doing a lot though. That's one thing I can say. They had us doing a lot, and a lot of that stuff. I wish that I was able to train more so I could get the weight off more. But yeah, this time around we're gonna be way more prepared. We're gonna be low on weight before I even get on the plane. I'm gonna make sure I'm like 5 pounds or less above weight. So yeah, we gonna be definitely prepared.
Is it different as a fighter to fight in those kinds of atmospheres? Because these Saudi shows, they've kind of de-emphasized the need for a crowd. Whether these fights are in Saudi Arabia, you had the U.S. fight in Times Square without a crowd. Saw someone like Ryan Garcia struggle, I thought, a little bit with that lack of atmosphere. Like, how much different is it fighting outside of the usual kind of rabid boxing fan base?
Uh, it's different because you want that energy. Well, you expecting that energy, and you expecting to hear the crowd go crazy when you get hit with a punch or somebody hit you. I mean, you hit somebody with a punch, so you expecting that energy that you can feed off of. But we professionals, so at the end of the day, we gotta adjust and adapt, and basically just you know uh get through it and be professionals. Everybody gotta do it. The person that you fighting is going through it. You going through it. The people fighting before you and after you gotta go through it. So there's really no excuses. Everybody, on the same doing the same thing. So you just gotta, make it work.
So you get Nova in this fight. Guy that's been around the block a few times. I was at his last fight at Fenway Park, actually, a couple of months ago. What are you expecting from him? That's a guy with some good experience at high levels.
I'm expecting him to try to be rough in there, try to rough me up, try to be strong, throw everything, at the same pace, same speed, strong and hard. Try to be a little awkward. Um, that's pretty much it. Just expect him to be Nova, the Nova that we've been seeing. But I feel like my skills is far ahead of his, and I think I'm gonna show the difference in levels in this fight.
So last thing for you is that your manager Brian Peters, close with Matchroom, has Nunez. Has he told you or they told you anything about how realistic that fight is, either before the end of this year or early next year? Is there another fight at a championship level you think you can get? We've heard O'Shaquie Foster's name mentioned to you a bunch. I don't know what's happening with the Fulton fight with him, but where does a championship fight stand with you? What do you think the best opportunity is going to be for you in the next 6 months?
Yeah, like I said with the Nunez situation, they told me I was gonna have to wait 12 to 16 months. So we not waiting on that. I'm not waiting on that.
That's a long time, man. That's a long
Exactly.
time to say you got to wait.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, pretty much like my manager just been trying to, go different routes and things like that. Like the Jazz Dickens try fight him. I think he got like a interim or whatever for the WBA. I'm not sure if Lamont going move up or vacate the belt. I feel like they should make him vacate it because he already took one fight up at 135 and they was gonna have him rematch again at 135, and he been talking about fighting Shakur at 135. So I feel like he should the belt should be vacated. But we got Jazza Dickens, and then we got WBO. I think Brian want me to fight a man who never rotate. I think that's probably like his favorite fight for me. So yeah, we
What do
got
you think of
different.
that fight?
I think it's a fan friendly fight. I think it's definitely going to be one that the fans gonna love. It's gonna be very entertaining because he got a style that come forward. He don't really have defense, so he gonna get hit with a lot of shots and then um, possibly give a lot of shots too. I'm probably gonna have to go through some things in there, but I think it could be a dog fight at times, or not could be boxing at times. So I think is made for a very entertaining fight for sure.
Yeah, I can see why Brian would like that fight for you. It is a dangerous fight because Navarrete at 130 is really good,
Yeah,
but your discipline, your skills, and the power you've shown at 130, I think that would probably
yeah,
be a difference maker in a fight like that. But a lot of good fights seems like for you at 130.
yeah, definitely. I think like the Nunes fight and the Navarrete fight, those are my favorite fights at 130 as far as like getting the fans excited and the crowd entertained and things like that. I feel like those are the fights that would be the best fights in the division. But O'Shaquie Foster, I think, to be honest, I think that probably he's going to try to make it boring, but I'll definitely be like on the front foot stepping to him. And Jazza Dickens, I think I'll stop him easily too. So,
Well, either way, looking forward to seeing you in one of those fights, hopefully before the end of this year. Up first, though, Abraham Nova over in Saudi. Ray, good luck, man. Always good to talk to you.
yes, sir. Appreciate you, Chris.
All right, Sergio, before we get out of here, let's do our picks of the week because boxing is back in a big way this weekend. Saudi Arabia, huge card over in Riyadh. And let's start with the top of the bill. Moses Itauma against Dillian Whyte. We have devoted a lot of time talking about that fight. Give me your official prediction.
I like Moses Itauma by knockout. I think he continues that knockout streak, continues turning heads, and continues to remind people of Mike Tyson doing such great things at a young age. Itauma by knockout.
I think Itauma by knockout as well. I think the only question is, does it come within that 4.5 round over-under? Sergio says over. I'm going to say under. I think Itauma goes past the second round for his first time in 8 fights, but gets it done in the third or the fourth. On the undercard, you've got Nick Ball defending his 126-pound title against Sam Goodman. Sam Goodman was supposed to face Noah Inoue earlier in the year. He had to withdraw because of an injury. Now he's moving up in weight to fight Nick the Wrecking Ball, which is what he is when he's in the ring. Who do you like in this one?
I think Ball bounces to a decision here. I think Goodman is good, man, but I just don't think he's great, bro. So I think Nick Ball's gonna have some issues. I don't think he gets the stoppage, but I think he wins a convincing one-sided fight.
Nick Ball faded a little bit in his fight against Raymond Ford, but I think Ford is potentially a star in boxing. We're going to get to him in a moment. But I think Goodman, I agree with you. He's okay. He is undefeated, but he's a 122-pounder coming up in weight, and Nick Ball's pressure is just relentless. I mean, this guy reminds me of a smaller version of Marcos Maidana, where he is just throwing punches from all angles and putting nonstop pressure on you. He has not shown incredible power up until this point for all his activity and his angled punching. So I think he wins a decision as well. Nick Ball by decision over Sam Goodman. Finally, third one, Raymond Ford. In his third fight at 130, he gets Abraham Nova, who was a late replacement for Anthony Kakachi. Abraham Nova just fought a couple of months ago in Boston at Fenway Park. I was at that fight. He got a win. He's fought at the championship level before. Who do you like, Ford against Nova?
Look, man, Ford's been he's been getting the power. He's been really focusing on hitting harder, and he's putting guys down. He's believing himself as a champion now. But I like Nova lasting the distance in this fight, even though I think Ray Ford is becoming more of a savage inside that ring, doing it responsibly. I just think Nova's experienced enough, hard punching enough, and take a good shot. So I think Ray Ford decision.
Yeah, I like Ray by decision as well. His last 2 fights have been pretty entertaining. Like that win over Thomas Matisse was fun to watch, but he didn't get the knockout in either one of them. He's going to have 12 rounds in this one to try to get a stoppage. But I've watched Nova at a championship level at 130 pounds against someone like Oshaki Foster. He's got a good corner with him. I know he's been training, so he's not like he's walking into this fight unprepared. I think Ford's a better talent. I think he's going to outbox him, and he probably wins an 8-4 decision, but I do think it ultimately goes to a decision. All 3 of those fights available Saturday on DAZN. Hope you enjoy it, Sergio. I'm going to be dragging you out of wherever you are on Saturday afternoon to tape once again, so prepare yourself accordingly.
My phone will be off.